Hello and welcome to part 2 in the series about content creation primarily but not exclusively for Second Life, but using primarily but not exclusively Blender. If you are joining me immediately after watching the first video, quick save. If you are joining me after taking a break from the first video, I screwed up. I forgot to tell you about holding Control and pressing U, which will save your startup file. Once you have saved your startup file, every time you open Blender, it will be as it is when you saved your startup file. That includes any window changes, that includes your changes to the world tab, that includes turning on ambient occlusion, that includes getting rid of your goofy camera and your cube. My apologies, that was my screw up. Let's dive straight in. There's a few things I want to cover today. I'm going to begin with a UV sphere. Shift A for the add menu. As you can see, there's avatar down here, which will help later on when we get into rigging and naturally using the Second Life avatar. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. UV sphere. Tab will take you into edit mode. I'm sorry, I will turn on cast keys here in this bottom left corner. You should now hopefully see every time I do something, some writing will tell you what I'm doing. When you are selecting things, as I mentioned yesterday, use the right mouse button. The right mouse button will not deselect things automatically. If you want to select or deselect anything, well, if you have anything selected, you can push the A to deselect everything. If you have nothing selected, you can push A to select everything. We can select items with vertices, edges, and faces. There's a door slamming, I do apologize. The vertices are your corners. The edges are your lines between your corners. And your faces are the planes between your edges. The basic three commands that obviously we will need to know. We have these arrows. I can shift drag these arrows in the directions they're pointing, and they will move the item in the direction they're pointing. I will just Control Z. Control Z is pretty universal for undo, so always nice to remember. If I don't want to use these arrows, I can use the G button for grab. This is the translation tool or move tool, whatever you want to call it. It is locked to the plane I am facing because I am facing from my front view camera. It is locked to the X-axis and the Z-axis. I could lock it manually to the X-axis by pushing the X key, the Z-axis by pushing the Z key. For some reason these aren't casting. Or the Y-axis by pushing the Y key. You can't really see it because we're straight on, but you can see the cubes around it as it moves into the foreground and the background. Editing about it. We went straight through the back of the sphere. Okay, let me just work out. This is casting. I'm not sure what happened there. Along the translation, we have rotate, which is the R key. This is currently locked on the Y-axis, the X-axis, and the Z-axis. I say the Y-axis to start with because it will be the opposite of the two axes you are facing. That being said, when I say it's locked to the camera view, if I was to come down at a weird angle here and hit G for grab, it would then be locked to the axis here. The third command, which is the really obvious one you need, is S for scale or size or whatever you want to call it. At the moment, locked to the X and Z axis. I could lock it to the Y axis, but you would see nothing because it is flat, or primarily you can see these cubes around it. I can lock it to the X axis to go in and out, or I can lock it to the Z axis to go up and down. You don't need to just do it with very bland mouse scroll. It's not very accurate. You can type specifically numbers. If you look down here, you should see all these numbers as I go in and out. I could type in 2 for 200%. I could type in backspace 0.5 for half the size. Everything is done in a value of 1 being 100%. So if I wanted to move this square over by 100%, I could hit GX1. That's more than 100%. Move is a tricky thing. I'm not really sure how I work out the math for the move. Sometimes it works nicely, sometimes it doesn't. But we'll move it along. Well, I think it's in reference to, we have here the grid. That would make more sense if it was a universal thing. I think if I hit GX1, it's going to move over directly into position about here. I will test this now. GX1. No, it moved over half that amount. So GX2 would have taken it over to there. I will stop making myself look silly now and carry on. Rotation is done not on a percentage basis, but a 360-degree basis. So if I was to type in 180, it would be upside down, which looks exactly the same as it did before. I should have probably typed in something like 90 so you could see it sideways. Now, before I get into the other kind of selection moving, or a bit more of advanced moving, I just want to delete this line in the middle. Now I have my two halves, as I had yesterday. There is this thing called proportional editing, which has its own little window here, or the shortcut key is O. If I was to hit G for grab now, you see the circle appears around the origin point of the object I am editing. If I show you with the mouse, oh look, soft selection, everything connected. I can scroll my mouse wheel in and out to change the size of the area I am affecting, and even the strength of it to a degree. The closer or the larger the sphere, the more it is going to get affected, or the closer it is to the middle of the sphere, should I say. Circle. It's a circle. It's not a sphere. Yeah, it is technically a sphere. It is three-dimensional, but you can only see it as a circle. There are multiple different types of subsection. That was the sharp. Here is the smooth for a quick comparison. Not that you can really see because you weren't paying attention, because I didn't tell you to pay attention. But this is a smooth. This is a sharp. And then we have constant, linear. Sphere is a good one because it will only move the items that are within the sphere that you have for the selection. If I wanted to move something in this one, say I wanted to rotate it to be more like that, but I didn't want the top one to be moved, I could come down to my selection here and turn it to connected, and then I could rotate this one and the top one will be left completely alone. I want to move into one of the advanced menus at this point. I will turn off my proportional editing and select my edge tool. If I grab a ring here, I'm going to talk about cutting lines. If I press the W, you get this specials menu, which is all nice and handy. There's a lot of all the good tools in here. Subdivide being the first one, will cut our line in half. If I bring open my side menu, as I mentioned yesterday with T, I can see at the bottom I have an individual window for Subdivide, which will have number of cuts and smoothness, which can't really do much on this small angle here. I could, if I wanted it smooth, hit Subdivide Smooth. As you can see, it's now brought in a slight curve on here. If I increase these, it still works the same way. It's pretty much the same as Subdivide, but it comes with a default setting on the smoothness of 1. If I wanted to have a bit more control over where I cut, I could hold Control and press, sorry, I'll deselect all that first so I can show you this easier. Control and press R. I get this pink line, or purple line, I'm not sure, I am colorblind, that I can drag over into pretty much any cube, any face edge, and it will draw these lines around. I can click in the area that I want to cut. I can then move my mouse up and down, so I can cut it closer to the top, or I can cut it closer to the bottom. If I wanted to just leave it locked to the middle, I could hit the escape key or the right mouse, which is a kind of cancel for many things. If I right click mouse there, you see it locked to the middle. If I just grab a face quickly, I could then use the escape key or the right mouse button to, as if I never grabbed it. The other form of cutting would be the knife tool. Now it's K for knife. As you can see, I now have this cube coming up and along my edges. You can do it manually wherever you like on these edges, or you can hold Control to lock to vertipoints and halfway along edges. I'm now going to just make a quick cut here, and then I'm going to hit Enter. And as you can see, I now have a new series of faces within my existing faces. Here we go. The next part of the W menu, I suppose, that's worth using remove doubles. Remove doubles is a good one. Actually, if I first show you, take this section here. If I hold shift and press D, I get duplicate. As with the grab, it's now locked to this axis. I will duplicate the area that I had selected there. I can lock it to the X, Y, Z axis. I can hit rotate. I can do anything I want there. I'm going to move it over here, and then I'm going to shift D again, move it along the Z axis. This is going to be, for argument's sake here, I'm going to grab these lines, hit S0 to shrink everything, and then W, remove doubles. You can see at the top here, remove 9 vertices. Where there was 10, there's now only 1. So if I grab here, I now have all of those points. There are easier ways to do it. I will probably not cover them in this video, although, oh no, let's get them done quick. I'm sorry if I'm throwing lots at you, but I want to cover as much as possible. Hopefully this is going to be in a format that people will be able to pause, rewatch, whatever they need to do to get these. If I select this verti, this verti, this verti, this actually let's just select everything except that one we have there, and then we'll end up with just a solid edge. Hold Alt and press M for merge. You can do this at the first one I selected, at the last one I selected, at the center of all of them, at where the cursor is, or just collapse in general. I'm going to do it last, which should be this verti here, and then we have that edge. We could do it here just to show you as it's brought that in, or Alt M at first, we'll bring it to the first one I selected, Alt M at center, comes in the middle. I apologise for the format of this video. It's not the best planned, but I do what I can. Okay, sorry about that. I had to pause for a second there. The next thing we will cover is I spoke yesterday about our selections here. Let me bring this down into the faces. Is the H key for hide. This is another way, like the connected on the proportional editing. If I didn't want to edit anything in this section that I've just hidden, it is now hidden and cannot be edited. If I select another selection from the back here and hit H key, it has hidden that too. So no matter what I do to all these other pieces, these pieces will be unaffected. Anything that I want to bring back, if I hit Alt H, it brings back everything that is hidden. It also selects everything that is hidden. So if I was to have all selected here and then Alt H, I would have the parts, I would have the entire model selected. If I had nothing selected in Alt H, I would just have those parts selected. If I wanted to hide the opposite, I would hold Shift and H, and that would hide those. I will Alt H again. If I want to get back to the places I had originally, I will hold Control and press I for inverse. That covers the next 3 parts on the W menu. The next part is flip normals. If I hit W and then flip normals, nothing has happened. If I go into my text view though, you can see this top half of the sphere now has its white faces all on the inside. That is the faces with the textures. The bottom half has them all on the outside. This is handy if you find you have pieces inside out. As such, although with an item that is symmetrical like this, I will go back into texture view so you can see, it may be worthwhile just hitting the scale X and -1. There we go. Next item in the W menu would be smooth. Nice and handy. If I wanted to smooth this top part, I hit smooth here. Alternatively, from clicking, you can hit Shift R to redo the last action you made, whether that would be a subdivide or whatever else. That was Control Z there. If I Shift R here, nothing's going to happen because there's no listed action. Okay, next in the W menu, we have Replacement Smooth, which honestly I'm not really sure what purpose it will serve at this point. So we'll move directly onto Inset Faces. Inset faces is one of my favorite tools. We'll take this down actually. I just apologize for the spam. Every time I move the camera, it's going to do that. If I select these 4 faces and hit W, inset faces, as you can see, it is insetting very nicely, along with where I move my mouse. If I come back over to this left side and click here, you can now see I have multiple options for the inset, including thickness, which is what my mouse was doing, and depth, which means I can take it in and out. Let's bring this one out. I can turn off select outer if I wanted to keep the middle selected. If I was doing this along an edge and I didn't want the edge extruded, I could turn off boundary, which will do nothing in this mode. There's offset even, which will keep the shape. There is offset relative, which will bring everything in exactly the same proportions as the bottom one. There is obviously another method of doing this, which most people have heard of, which is the extrude. You just hit E on your key. It is locked to the direction the items are facing. So let's bring it out about the same distance. Left click. I'm just going to, for example, bring my camera onto it and then scale. It looks pretty similar. You can see it's not quite the same. If I was to inset faces here at a depth of 0, let's bring the thickness in and then use the same method of extrusion. Sometimes extruding doesn't work with scaling straight off the bat. You might have to hit E and then enter and then S for scale. And you'll see we have quite different results here too. Not to mention it's dented the inside, it hasn't kept the exact curving, whereas this one has. Next in the W menu we have bevel. Bevel is another very nice tool. Again, sorry for the spam, I will select an edge here, or an edge loop, sorry, hit W, bevel. I can do this again with my mouse, or it's going to look really silly when I do that, but I have to drag this all the way back down. I can do it again in my T menu to the left side of the screen, where I can also add an extra segment to soften the curve. The next item would be bridge edges, or bridge two edge loops. That's the name of it. Now, obviously, because these two symmetrical sides of a sphere, these have the same amount of edges all the way around. So you can select that edge loop and select that edge loop, hit W, and bridge two edge loops. It's very important that they do have the same number of edges, otherwise it wouldn't work. But if I click this now, it fills it in very nicely. And if I wanted to try and get that sphere look back, I could subdivide smooth pretty much back to where we started. Back onto the aspect of cloning, I'm going to Shift D, X this out. Now, say I have these two objects and I want them separate. I could hit P on my key, where I can separate an object by selection, by material, or by these parts. I'm going to select selection because I haven't gone into these 2 points yet. We'll remove from the main model all the parts I have selected. As you can see, this is still workable. This piece is not. I now have this part on the left, this part on the right. If I wanted to put them back together, I would select the first, select the second, with Shift right click, Control J, and they now become the same model once again. Right, I think we're running out of time, so the last thing I want to go through would be, sorry, there's a couple of things I want to go through. Let's try and do this very quickly. Delete menu. If I select this loop here, I can delete vertices, which will delete those vertices. If I wanted to just delete the edge, it would leave the edges that I had not selected. If I wanted to delete faces, it would do nothing because I have no faces selected. But I could come to this face, delete face, and there we go. If If I come here, delete faces and edges, you can see once again it has deleted the edges off the side, but leaves these edges here. If I delete only faces, it leaves the edges in the middle. The other parts are dissolve and limited dissolve. I would recommend skipping these. I will show you much easier methods than dissolve. It is a last sort of ditch effort to be using dissolve. If it's wanted, I will do a video with dissolve in it, but at this point I would rather not get people into bad habits. Edge collapse and edge loop. This is an edge loop. If I press delete edge loop, I cut this edge loop. This is an edge ring. If I wanted to bring these points together, I could edge collapse those in. As you can see, these are now all solid along here. This is another form of merging, like I was speaking of earlier. I wanted to get that out quickly. The last thing I want to talk about is shading. There's too many times in Second Life I see models and they have these horrible cube refractions with the light. Now this is very easily solved. There's a button here for it, and again it is in the W menu, so you can do it. Let's just select this one for now. So you can do it individually on different things. Shade smooth and shade flat. Shade smooth will have your smooth shape. This will remove all these weird artifacted lighting errors, and shade flat will bring them back if you want to do something like a flat wall or something like that. I apologize that this was very messy. I was planning on having this better planned. Never the way it works. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm sorry for throwing so much at you in such a short period of time. There is a lot to take in, but hopefully in the next video we can jump directly into UV mapping and hopefully look at our textures. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for watching, and maybe we'll see you next time.